The envelope felt wrong in Marcus Webb's hands. He'd been a royal guard for 12 years. He knew what belonged in the palace and what didn't. This crumpled paper wedged behind a radiator in the East Wing corridor didn't belong. It was 2:47 in the morning. Marcus was doing his routine sweep, boots silent on the ancient carpet. The palace slept around him, hundreds of rooms, thousands of secrets. His flashlight beam cut through the darkness, catching dust particles that hung in the air like tiny witnesses. That's when he saw it. A corner of yellowed paper barely visible. Marcus pulled it free. His breath caught. It was a hand-drawn map. But not just any map, a detailed layout of Buckingham Palace's security system. Red X marks covered specific locations. Guard rotation times scribbled in the margins. Camera blind spots circled in thick black ink, and in the top corner, written in careful letters, Tom Parker Bowles, Camilla's son. Marcus felt his pulse hammering in his ears. He'd met Tom twice during official functions. Pleasant man, friendly, but this was treason, or something close to it. The map showed things even most guards didn't know. The backup generator room. The secondary entrance used only during emergencies. The exact timing when the north gate went unmonitored for shift changes. Someone had been planning something, and they'd been planning it carefully. Marcus folded the paper with shaking hands and slipped it into his jacket. Protocol said he should report this immediately. Wake his superior. Start the chain of command. But protocol also said accusations against the royal family needed absolute certainty. One wrong move, and his career was over. He needed to think. Marcus continued his patrol, but his mind raced. Why would Tom need this information? Was he working alone? And the question that terrified him most, had someone already used this map? The palace suddenly felt different. Every shadow seemed to hide a threat. Every closed door concealed a secret. At 6 a.m., Marcus ended his shift. He didn't sleep. Instead, he sat in his small apartment, the map spread across his kitchen table, studying every detail. The annotations were recent, the ink still dark, not faded. Whoever drew this had been inside the palace within the last few weeks. They'd observed, taken notes, planned, but planned what? Marcus made a decision. Before he reported anything, he needed more evidence. If he was going to accuse a member of the royal family of whatever this was, he needed to be absolutely certain. He spent the day researching, making calls to colleagues he trusted, asking careful questions about recent security anomalies. Had anyone noticed anything unusual? Missing equipment? Unfamiliar faces? One detail emerged that made his blood run cold. 3 weeks ago, a palace storage room had been accessed after hours. Nothing was reported stolen. The incident was logged as a maintenance error. But the room that was accessed? It housed old architectural plans and security archives, the same information that appeared on this map. That evening, Marcus returned to work with the map hidden in his locker. He couldn't carry it on patrol, too risky if he was searched. But he couldn't leave it at home either, as he walked through the palace gates. He noticed something he'd missed 1,000 times before. A black sedan, parked across the street. Windows tinted. Engine running, it pulled away the moment Marcus looked at it. Coincidence? Maybe, but Marcus had learned to trust his instincts. And his instincts screamed that he'd stumbled into something far more dangerous than a misplaced piece of paper. Someone was watching the palace, and now they might be watching him. If you're hooked and want to see where this story goes, hit that subscribe button. This one's about to get intense. Marcus had 48 hours for his next meeting with the security chief. 48 hours to find the truth, or 48 hours for someone to silence him first. Asterisk. Marcus spent the next day doing what he did best, watching without being watched. He traded shifts with another guard to cover the East Wing during daylight hours. The area where he'd found the map, if someone had dropped it there, they might come back looking for it. The morning stretched slowly. Tourists shuffled past on guided tours. Staff moved through their routines. Everything appeared normal, but Marcus had learned that normal was often in disguise. At 11:23 a.m., he saw him. Tom Parker Bowles walked down the East Wing corridor with two other men. They wore visitor badges, but something about their body language felt rehearsed. Too casual. Too comfortable. Marcus watched from his post, perfectly still. Tom stopped. Right where Marcus had found the map. He glanced around a quick, nervous scan. Then he crouched, running his hand behind the same radiator, searching. Marcus's heart pounded so hard he thought Tom might hear it. Tom stood up empty-handed. His face showed confusion, maybe concern. He exchanged a look with one of his companions and shook his head. They moved on. Marcus waited 10 minutes before following at a distance. Palace protocol allowed guards to observe any visitor, royal family included. If security concerns existed, and Marcus had very real concerns, Tom and his companions headed toward the South Wing N area, used mainly for administrative offices. Less foot traffic. Fewer cameras? Marcus radioed his partner, Sarah Chen, using their private code. Following package delivery, South Wing, backup needed. Sarah understood. She'd been a guard almost as long as Marcus. She knew when something felt wrong. Tom entered a small conference room. The door closed. Marcus positioned himself at the far end of the hallway, pretending to check a fire extinguisher. Sarah appeared moments later, taking up a position near the stairwell. They waited. 20 minutes passed. Voices drifted through the door, muffled but animated. Marcus couldn't make out words, but he caught the tone. Urgent. Maybe angry. Then the door opened. Tom emerged first, face flushed. One of his companions followed, speaking rapidly in a low voice. Marcus caught fragments. Can't proceed without. And security changes everything. They passed Marcus without a glance. After they disappeared around the corner. You want to tell me what we're doing? Marcus showed her the map. Her eyes widened. Please tell me you reported this? I needed to be sure first. Marcus, I know what it is. Sarah studied the map, her professional training taking over. These markings? Whoever made this knows our systems inside and out. Better than most guards. Exactly. So what's Tom doing with it? That was the question Marcus had been asking himself all night. Tom Parker Bowles had no reason to breach palace security. He was family. He had legitimate access to almost everywhere, unless he was helping someone else. We need to search that conference room, Marcus said. They waited another 30 minutes to be safe. Then, using Marcus's master key, they slipped inside. The room was pristine. No papers left behind. No coffee cups. Nothing. Almost nothing. Sarah found it first, a small electronic device tucked under the conference table, about the size of a USB drive with a tiny blinking red light. Is that a recording device? Marcus finished. Someone's been listening. They stared at each other, the implications sinking in. If Tom had planted it, he was spying on palace conversations. If someone else had planted it, Tom might have just discovered it during his meeting. Either way, this was no longer just about a map. Marcus photographed the device from every angle, but left it in place. Removing it would alert whoever planted it. Better to let them think it remained undiscovered, as they locked the room and resumed their posts. Sarah grabbed Marcus's arm. You realize what this means? If Tom is involved in something and we expose it, it could destroy the royal family's reputation, Marcus said quietly. I know. And if we're wrong, then we've just destroyed our careers. That night, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling of being followed. Twice on his way home, he caught glimpses of the same black sedan from the night before. Or maybe it was his imagination. Maybe paranoia was setting in. He entered his building and climbed the stairs. Instead of taking the elevator, easier to hear if someone followed, his apartment was exactly as he'd left it, except for one thing. The map, which he'd hidden inside a book on his shelf, was gone. Someone had been here. Someone had searched his home. Someone knew he'd found the map and taken it. Marcus's phone buzzed. An unknown number? He answered without thinking. A voice, distorted and mechanical, spoke. Stop looking. While you still can. The line went dead. Marcus stood frozen, phone still pressed to his ear. He wasn't just investigating anymore. He was being hunted. Marcus didn't go to work the next day. Instead, he called in sick, something he'd done maybe twice in 12 years. His supervisor didn't question it. But Marcus knew he'd just put himself on borrowed time. He needed answers. Fast, the break-in changed everything. Someone knew he had the map. Someone knew where he lived. And that threatening phone call wasn't just intimidation, it was a warning. But it also told Marcus something crucial. Whoever was behind this was scared. Scared enough to show their hand? People only threatened you when they thought you were getting close to something important. Marcus spent the morning at an internet cafe 3 miles from his apartment. He couldn't risk using his home computer, too easy to track. He logged into the palace security archives using his credentials and started digging. Tom Parker Bowles had visited the palace 17 times in the past 3 months. Normal enough for a family member, but Marcus cross-referenced those dates with security incident reports. A pattern emerged. Every time Tom visited, small anomalies appeared in the logs. A camera going offline for maintenance, a door alarm registering a false trigger, a guard called away from their post for a priority situation that turned out to be nothing, individually meaningless. Together, they painted a picture. Someone was creating deliberate gaps in security, and Tom's visits coincided perfectly with those gaps. But why? Marcus printed the evidence and stuffed it into his jacket. He was about to leave when his phone rang. Sarah Chen, where are you? Her voice was tight. Worried. Can't say. What's wrong? Security Chief Brennan wants to see you today. He specifically asked about your patrol logs from 3 nights ago. The night Marcus found the map. What did you tell him? Nothing. I said I'd track you down. Marcus, what's happening? I think someone reported me. Silence on the other end. Then, you need to come in. If you run, you look guilty. I am guilty. I concealed evidence and conducted an unauthorized investigation. Then tell them why. Show them what you found. Marcus wanted to. God, he wanted to walk into Brennan's office and dump everything on his desk. Let someone else handle this mess. But something stopped him. Brennan had been security chief for 6 months. Before that, he'd worked private security for... Marcus couldn't remember. He pulled up Brennan's file on the archive system. His blood went cold. Before joining the palace security team, Chief Brennan had spent 4 years working for Ravencrest Security Ltd., a private firm that specialized in high-profile protection. Service is the same firm that currently employed one of the men Marcus had seen with Tom Parker Bowles. It could be coincidence. The security world was small. People crossed paths, but Marcus had stopped believing in coincidences. Sarah, I need you to trust me. Don't tell Brennan where I am. Not yet, Marcus. Please. A long pause. Then, 24 hours. That's all I can give you. After that, I'm filing a report. Thank you. He hung up and sat back, mind racing. If Brennan was involved, then this conspiracy went higher than he'd imagined. Tom Parker Bowles. Private security contractors. A security chief with connections to both. What were they planning? Marcus thought back to the map. The marked locations weren't random. They formed a pattern, a route through the palace that avoided cameras and guard posts. A route that led directly to the royal family's private quarters. 2. Camilla's rooms. The realization hit him like a physical blow. This wasn't about breaching security from outside. This was about someone on the inside creating a path for an external threat. An assassination attempt. A kidnapping. Something that required intimate knowledge of the palace's defenses. And Tom, Camilla's own son, was somehow involved in targeting his mother. Unless Marcus pulled up everything he could find on Tom Parker Bowles. Family background. Business dealings. Personal life. One article from 8 months ago caught his attention. Tom Parker Bowles. Restaurant faces bankruptcy after failed expansion. Financial problems. Serious ones. Marcus dug deeper. Tom had borrowed heavily from private investors to expand his restaurant business. When the expansion failed, Those investors wanted their money back. With interest, the kind of interest that broke people, Marcus found the investor group's name buried in a business filing. Ravencrest Capital Holdings, the same company connected to Ravencrest. Security now. The pieces were falling into place. Tom was in debt to dangerous people. People who'd found a way to use his royal connections for something much bigger than collecting a loan. They'd leveraged his access, his knowledge of the palace, his trust within the family, and they'd planted someone inside palace security to coordinate from within. Marcus stood up so quickly his chair fell over. He needed to warn someone, but who could he trust? If Brennan was compromised, who else might be? He called Sarah again. I need you to get a message to someone. Not through official channels. To who? Camilla herself. Are you insane? I can't just walk up to the queen consort. Her life is in danger. Sarah. Her son is being blackmailed into helping plan an attack against her. We have maybe hours before something happens. You could hear Sarah breathing on the other end. Processing. What do you need me to do? Marcus gave her instructions. Simple, direct, risky as hell. After hanging up, he gathered his evidence and headed for the one place he thought might be safe, the home of James Hartley, a retired palace guard who'd trained Marcus when he first joined. If anyone would know what to do, it was James. But as Marcus approached James's building, he saw it again. The black sedan. Parked across the street, this time, didn't drive away. Two men got out. Marcus didn't wait to see what they wanted. He turned and walked quickly in the opposite direction, forcing himself not to run. Running drew attention. Running said guilty. But his heart screamed at him to sprint behind him. Footsteps quickened. They were following. Marcus ducked into a corner shop, a small newsstand cluttered with magazines and lottery tickets. The elderly clerk barely looked up from his newspaper. Through the shop window, Marcus watched the two men pass. They were scanning the street looking for him. One spoke into a phone. Marcus waited until they moved on, then slipped out the back exit into an alley. His training kicked in. Lose the tail. Change direction. Stay in public spaces where they couldn't corner him. He emerged 3 streets over and hailed a taxi. Where to? The driver asked. Marcus gave an address near the palace, but not too near. He needed to think. Needed to regroup. As the taxi pulled into traffic, he noticed another black sedan falling in 2 cars behind. They weren't giving up. Marcus's phone buzzed. Sarah, got your message to her staff, she said quickly. But Marcus, you need to hear this. I checked the duty roster. There's a private event tomorrow night, a small dinner for the royal family and select guests. High security, but what? Chief Brennan personally restructured the guard assignments this morning. Half our regular team was replaced with contracted security. How did you? It's happening tomorrow night, Marcus said. Whatever they're planning, it happens at that dinner. The taxi driver glanced at him in the rearview mirror. Marcus lowered his voice. Can you access the guest list? Already did. 20 guests. Politicians, donors, a few family friends. But one name stands out. Gregory Walsh. He's listed as Tom Parker Bowles' business associate. Marcus knew that name. Gregory Walsh was the public face of Ravencrest Capital. The man Tom owed millions to. He's going to be inside the palace. Inside the family's private wing, with contracted security controlling access. The pieces were all there. Walsh gets inside legitimately as a guest. The compromised security team creates gaps in protection at precise moments. Tom's map provides the exact route to avoid cameras and guards. But for what? Assassination seemed too crude for this level of planning. They needed something more subtle. Something that wouldn't immediately point to foul play. Marcus's mind raced through possibilities. Sarah, check the palace medical records. See if Camilla has any known allergies or health conditions that could be exploited. He heard typing on Sarah's end. She's allergic to shellfish. Severe reaction? Says here she carries an EpiPen at all times. That was it. Anaphylactic shock could look like a sudden medical emergency. If someone slipped shellfish into her food at the dinner and if her EpiPen was missing or tampered with, They're going to poison her, Marcus said. Make it look like an accidental exposure. We have to stop this. No, Marcus said firmly. We can't. Not officially. If we go to the police or higher authorities, Brennan will hear about it. He'll shut it down, cover their tracks. Tom and Walsh will claim innocence, and we'll have nothing but circumstantial evidence. So what do? Marcus made a decision that would either save lives or destroy his own. We let it play out, but we control how it plays out. He instructed the taxi driver to take him to a different address, a storage facility on the city's edge, where Marcus kept personal items from his military days, including things he'd hoped never to use again. Inside his unit, he found what he needed: a recording device, a covert camera, and a handgun he'd kept from his service in the Royal Marines. He'd sworn never to bring a weapon into the palace. But tomorrow night, that oath might be the only thing standing between Camilla and death. Marcus checked his phone. One new message from an unknown number. A photo. It showed James Hartley, the retired guard Marcus had been planning to visit. He was tied to a chair in what looked like a basement, bruised, bleeding. Below the image, a text: "Last warning, walk away." Marcus felt rage and fear collide in his chest. James was in his 70s. Harmless, they'd grabbed him just to send a message. He called the number. It rang once before being answered. Feeling motivated to reconsider? The same distorted voice from before. Let him go. He has nothing to do with this. It does now. Just like your friend Sarah? Just like anyone else you've involved? Marcus's stomach dropped. If you touch her, we don't want to touch anyone. We want you to disappear. Take a vacation. Visit family. Don't come to work tomorrow. And if I don't, then people start dying. And it starts with the old man. The line went dead. Marcus stood in the storage unit, surrounded by relics of his past, facing an impossible choice. Walk away, and Camilla dies. James might live. Sarah stays safe. Marcus keeps his life. Or fight back, knowing that people he cared about would become targets. He thought about his oath. 12 years of service? 12 years of standing watch while royals slept safely in their beds. 12 years of believing that duty meant something. Marcus loaded the handgun and slipped it into his jacket. He wasn't walking away, but he wasn't going to fight alone either. He placed one more call to an investigative journalist he'd met years ago during a palace security briefing. Someone outside the system. Someone who could expose this if Marcus didn't survive tomorrow night. "I'm sending you files," Marcus said when she answered. "Everything I have. If you don't hear from me by midnight tomorrow, publish all of it." "Marcus, what's going on?" "Insurance," he said. "Just promise me you'll publish it." She promised. Marcus sent the files, then destroyed his phone. They'd been tracking him through it anyway. Tomorrow night, he'd enter that palace knowing it might be the last time. But he'd enter it ready. The day of the dinner arrived with gray skies and cold rain. Marcus entered Buckingham Palace at 4 p.m., 3 hours before the event. He'd showered, shaved, pressed his uniform until it was perfect. He looked like every other royal guard reporting for duty, but underneath his uniform jacket, he carried the handgun. And in his pocket, the recording device Sarah met him at the security checkpoint. Her eyes were red like she hadn't slept. "They have James," Marcus said quietly as they walked. She nodded. "I know. I got a message too. Photos of my sister's house. Her kids playing in the yard." Marcus felt sick. "Sarah, you don't have to." "Yes, I do. They threatened my family. That was their mistake." They reached the guard station. Chief Brennan was already there, reviewing assignments with the contracted security team. 6 men Marcus had never seen before, all wearing Ravencrest uniforms. Brennan's eyes landed on Marcus. "Webb, didn't expect you today. Thought you were ill? Feeling better, sir?" "Good. I need you on perimeter duty. Eastgate, the farthest position from the private dining room." Exactly what Marcus expected. "Yes, sir." Marcus took his assigned post, but the moment Brennan left, he radioed Sarah. "I'm going dark. Radio silence, unless it's an emergency. Copy that." Marcus waited until the shift changed at 6:30 p.m., then slipped away from his post. He moved through the palace's service corridors, the routes used by staff to move unseen. Routes he'd memorized over 12 years. He made his way to the private wing. The dinner was set to begin at 7 p.m. Guests were already arriving. Through a window, Marcus saw Gregory Walsh stepping out of a limousine. Tom Parker Bowles beside him. Tom looked terrible, pale, nervous. His eyes darted around like a trapped animal. Marcus positioned himself in a storage room adjacent to the dining hall. Through a ventilation grate, he had a partial view of the table. He set up his camera and started recording. The royal family entered at 7:15 p.m. King, Camilla, other family members, Marcus recognized. They took their seats, elegant and composed. Camilla sat at the center of the long table. Tom sat 4 chairs down next to Gregory Walsh. Marcus watched Walsh carefully. The man was smooth, confident. He spoke to the guests around him, laughed at jokes, played the part of a respectable businessman perfectly. But Marcus noticed Walsh's hand movements, subtle, practiced. During the second course, a seafood appetizer, Walsh engaged Tom in conversation, drawing his attention away from Camilla at the same moment. One of the Ravencrest security guards approached Camilla's seat, ostensibly to refill her water glass. Marcus saw it happen. The guard's hand moved over Camilla's plate for less than a second. A tiny sprinkle of something. Maybe crushed shellfish. Maybe worse. Marcus's finger moved to his radio, but he stopped. If he called it in now, Brennan would respond. The compromised security chief would contain the situation, destroy the evidence, and Marcus would have nothing but accusations. He needed to catch them in the act. All of them. Camilla lifted her fork. Marcus moved. He burst from the storage room into the dining hall. 20 faces turned toward him in shock. "Don't eat that," Marcus shouted, pointing at Camilla's plate. Guards rushed toward him. The Ravencrest men reached for their weapons, but Marcus was faster. He crossed the room in 4 strides and swept Camilla's plate onto the floor. "This man is trying to poison you," Marcus said, pointing at the Ravencrest guard. "And this man orchestrated it." He pointed at Walsh. The room erupted in chaos. Tom Parker Bowles stood abruptly, his chair crashing backward. "No, this wasn't supposed to." Walsh remained calm. "This guard has clearly had some kind of breakdown. Someone remove him." Chief Brennan appeared at the doorway, face red. "Webb, stand down." "Check the plate," Marcus said, looking directly at King Charles. "Test it for shellfish contamination. I have evidence that this entire dinner was planned as an assassination attempt against the Queen Consort." "That's absurd," Walsh said smoothly. "I'm a guest here." "I have no reason to." "You have 4 million reasons," Marcus interrupted. "The debt Tom Parker Bowles owes you. The debt you've been using to blackmail him into helping you." Tom's face crumbled. He looked at his mother, tears streaming down his face. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm so sorry. They said they'd kill me. They said they'd destroy the family's reputation if I didn't help them." "I never thought they'd actually shut up," Walsh snapped, his composure finally cracking. Sarah Chen appeared then, carrying a laptop. "I have the security footage. All of it. The guard contaminating the plate. Walsh meeting with Chief Brennan last week. Tom's visits coordinated with security gaps." Brennan moved toward her. "Give me that 3 royal protection officers Marcus actually trusted," stepped between them. "I think everyone should stay exactly where they are," one of them said. Marcus pulled out his recording device. "I've been documenting this for 3 days. I have evidence of conspiracy, extortion, and attempted murder. The authorities are already being notified." Walsh lunged. It was desperate, stupid, but dangerous. He grabbed for Camilla, perhaps thinking she could be a hostage. A way out. Marcus's training took over. He intercepted Walsh, using a defensive hold he'd learned in the Marines. Walsh struggled, but Marcus held firm until other guards secured him. The Ravencrest security team tried to run. They didn't make it past the palace gates. Chief Brennan stood frozen. Realizing his career and freedom were over, Tom collapsed into a chair, sobbing. Camilla approached Marcus slowly. She studied his face for a long moment. "You saved my life," she said quietly. "Just doing my job, ma'am." "No, you did far more than your job. You risked everything." Marcus thought about James Hartley, hopefully still alive somewhere, about Sarah's family, threatened, about his own destroyed apartment and stolen evidence. "Some things are worth the risk," he said. Police arrived within minutes. Real police, not palace security. They took Walsh, Brennan, and the Ravencrest team into custody. Tom was questioned, but not arrested. The evidence showed he'd been coerced, terrified. Used as the dining hall cleared, Sarah found Marcus. They found James. He's alive. Beaten up, but alive. Marcus felt tension he'd been carrying for days finally release. Your family? Safe. The suspects watching them were arrested an hour ago. They stood together, watching the aftermath unfold around them. "Should probably be fired," Sarah said. "Probably," Marcus agreed. But they weren't fired. What happened next, neither of them expected. 3 weeks later, Marcus stood in a room he'd never been allowed to enter before. The king's private study. He wore his dress uniform. Every metal polished, though his hands still shook slightly. Sarah stood beside him, equally nervous. King Charles sat behind an ornate desk, reading from a formal document. Camilla stood near the window, watching the gardens below. In recognition of exceptional bravery and dedication to duty, the king read, "We hereby commend Royal Guard Marcus Webb and Royal Guard Sarah Chen for actions that prevented a serious threat to the crown." He set down the paper and looked at them directly. "The official story," he continued, "is that palace security intercepted a potential security breach. No mention of assassination. No mention of family involvement. The press has been told that several contractors and one security chief were arrested for conspiracy to commit fraud." Marcus understood. The truth would destroy public confidence, would humiliate Tom Parker Bowles, would raise questions about palace security that couldn't be easily answered. "We're asking you to keep the details private," the king said. "For the good of the institution." "We understand, sir," Marcus said. Camilla turned from the window. "Tom wants to speak with you." "If you're willing." Marcus hadn't expected that. "Of course, ma'am." She led them to an adjacent room where Tom sat, looking 20 years older than he had 3 weeks ago. His hands were clasped together so tightly, his knuckles were white. "I don't deserve your forgiveness," Tom said immediately. "I don't even deserve to be free. I was weak, selfish. I put my mother's life in danger because I couldn't face my own failures. There was nothing to say that would make this easier. The debt was crushing me," Tom continued. "Walsh approached me 6 months ago. Said he could make it disappear if I just provided some information. Building layouts, security schedules. I told myself it was harmless, that they just wanted to impress potential clients with their knowledge." "When did you realize what they were actually planning?" Sarah asked. 2 days before the dinner. Walsh told me to make sure I attended. Said it was time to finalize our arrangement. That's when I understood. And by then, they had so much on me. Evidence of my cooperation. Recordings. They said if I didn't go through with it, they'd destroy me and claim I'd acted alone." Tom looked at Marcus with hollow eyes. "I dropped that map deliberately. In the corridor, where I knew guards patrolled, I was hoping someone would find it. Someone would stop this before I had to." Marcus felt a strange mixture of anger and pity. Tom had been a coward, but he'd also been trapped, used. "You could have come forward," Marcus said. "I know. I should have. But I was terrified and ashamed." Camilla placed a hand on her son's shoulder. The gesture was protective despite everything. "Tom will be receiving treatment," she said quietly. "For gambling addiction, for the poor decisions that led him into debt, and he'll be working to make restitution in whatever way possible." "I'm selling everything," Tom added. "The restaurants, the house, all of it. Every penny goes to charity, to the families of the people who were threatened because of me." He looked at Sarah. "Your sister. Her children. I'm so sorry." Sarah's jaw tightened, but she nodded. They left Tom with his mother and returned to the king's study. "You'll both be promoted," King Charles said. "Enhanced positions within the protection detail. Significant increases in salary and private commendations that will remain in your permanent records." "We don't need," Marcus started. "You do," the king interrupted gently. "Because what you did went beyond duty. You trusted your instincts when everyone else would have looked away. You risked your careers and your lives. That deserves recognition, even if it must remain private." Marcus and Sarah exchanged glances. "There's one more thing," Camilla said. She handed Marcus a sealed envelope. "For James Hartley, the gentleman who was taken. We've arranged for his medical care and compensation for what he endured." James was recovering, but the trauma had been severe. "Thank you, ma'am." As they prepared to leave, Camilla called Marcus back. "My son told me you could have exposed everything," she said. "Could have gone to the press, made yourself a hero. Why didn't you?" Marcus considered his answer carefully. "Because palace security isn't about being a hero. It's about protecting people quietly, solving problems before they become public disasters. I took an oath to guard the royal family. All of them, even from themselves, if necessary." Camilla smiled sadly. "The monarchy is built on secrets. Some necessary, some shameful. Thank you for helping us keep this one." Marcus returned to duty the next day. New position, new responsibilities. But the same palace, the same corridors where he'd found that map. Gregory Walsh was awaiting trial on 14 charges. Chief Brennan had turned state's evidence, hoping for a reduced sentence. The Ravencrest security team was being prosecuted. Separately, the journalist Marcus had published a carefully edited version of the story, enough to acknowledge the arrests, but nothing about the assassination attempt or Tom's involvement. Life at the palace returned to its routine. Tours continued. Ceremonies proceeded. Guards stood watch, but Marcus noticed small changes. Security protocols were updated. All contracted personnel now underwent enhanced vetting. Random audits of guard positions became standard. The vulnerabilities that had nearly cost Camilla her life were being quietly addressed. One evening, 6 months after the dinner, Marcus was patrolling the East Wing when he encountered Tom Parker Bowles. Tom had lost weight. His face showed the strain of therapy and public scrutiny over his business failures. But he looked cleaner somehow. "Clearer, Guard Webb," Tom said formally. "Mr. Parker Bowles." They stood in awkward silence. "I finished reading about palace security," Tom said finally. "Did you know the first royal guards were established in 1509? "I did. 500 years of protecting the crown. 500 years of men and women like you standing watch. And I nearly destroyed that legacy." "You didn't, though. That's what matters." Tom smiled faintly. "My mother says you're the best guard in the palace. That you see things others miss." Marcus thought about the map, the patterns. The instinct that had driven him to investigate when walking away would have been easier. "I just pay attention," he said. "The world needs more of that." Tom continued down the corridor, and Marcus resumed his patrol. Later that night, as his shift ended, Marcus stepped outside into cool air. London sprawled before him, millions of lights in the darkness, millions of lives moving forward. Sarah joined him, 2 coffee cups in hand, thinking deep thoughts. She asked, "Thinking I need a vacation?" She laughed. "After saving the Queen, you've earned it." Marcus took the coffee and sipped it gratefully. "Do you ever wonder if we did the right thing?" Sarah asked quietly. "Keeping it quiet? Protecting Tom?" "Every day," Marcus admitted. "But I think about the alternative. The scandal. The questions. The damage to people's faith in the institution. Maybe some secrets exist for a reason. Maybe." They stood together in comfortable silence. The palace behind them was secure. The threats neutralized. The royal family safe. Tomorrow, Marcus would return to his post. Would walk the same corridors. Would watch for shadows and patterns and anything that felt wrong. because that was the job, not glory, not recognition, just quiet vigilance in the darkness. And for Marcus Webb, that had always been enough. The lights of the palace glowed warm against the night sky. Inside, families slept safely. History continued. Secrets remained buried, and one royal guard stood watch, ready for whatever came next.